Boys, we're back today with the second NBA mock draft of this season. Let's go. Second one, we're going to do a full first round today, so I'm hyped for that. But before the video starts, if you hit that subscribe button, I'm just getting started on YouTube, so that'd really help me out, and I'd appreciate that a lot. Well, let's not waste time. Let's just get into it. So, this is based on record. We're not going we're going to do a real lottery or anything. This is just based on record right now with the first pick through the 30th pick. So, the Houston Rockets. You know, you look at the Rockets, you think maybe they want a guy like Mobley to put next to Christian Wood in the front court for the future. But I think there's a consensus top talent here, and you just have to take him, and that's Cunningham. You know, maybe you're either like, I don't know how he fits next to John Wall, but John Wall's getting older. I don't think that really matters. I think you're the first overall pick. You're that bad. You draft based on talent rather than need. And we go the best talent in this draft in Cunningham to the Houston Rockets at pick number 1. So, pick number 2, the Minnesota Timberwolves. Been playing better as of late. Have a good young core in terms of, D'Lo, Anthony Edwards, Karl-Anthony Towns. Malik Beasley's come into some legal trouble this season, which is not great. But their backcourt seems pretty set. I think they need a front court guy to put next to Karl-Anthony Towns, a good defender, and I think that comes in the form of Evan Mobley, who will become the next, big front court player for the Timberwolves. I think we'll pair them together, and they'll be a good front court for a long time with Karl-Anthony Towns and Evan Mobley. So, the Detroit Pistons just picked Killian Hayes last year, so you're looking at it, they probably don't want a point guard. I think Suggs is a point guard. You probably don't go Kuminga because you already have Jeremy Grant. So, if we want to look at their backcourt, they really need a shooting guard. It says Suggs is a shooting guard. He's really a 1. So I think the best move here is for the Pistons to go an elite scorer, a great off-ball guy, in Jalen Green out of the G League Ignite team. The Orlando Magic at pick number 4. So in terms of positions they're set at, I'd say, with center, they're probably set, with Wendell Carter. With point guard, they're probably set because they have Fultz, they have Cole Anthony, they have RJ Hampton, who you could argue is a 2, but he's probably a 1. So we're probably not going guard there. They have Gary Harris at the 2 already. So if we look at that, I think their biggest positional need right now is probably the 4. And I think they look at talent too, and they realize Jonathan Kuminga is an elite power forward and a great player. So they will draft Kuminga with the 4th overall pick. With the 5th overall pick, it is the Oklahoma City Thunder. So, they have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who's mostly played the 2, to be honest with you. Throughout his career, I'd say Shai has mostly been the off guard, whether that be because of, Chris Paul last year, then with George Hill and Teo Maledon this year. He's kind of been playing the 2. In LA, he kind of played the 2 as well with Patrick Beverley there. So, I think the best move here is to get a great point guard, and they have one here in Jalen Suggs, and I think they're really happy with this pick, and we'll take Suggs at 5th overall. This 5 right here, it's likely going to be the first 5 drafted overall in any mock draft you see. I think this draft is basically 5 players deep. Maybe if you think Davion Mitchell or Keon Johnson is reaching into that top tier, you could argue that, but I'd say it's been pretty clear throughout that the top 5 players in this draft are Cade, Mobley, Green, Kuminga, and Suggs. Maybe not in that order. You could argue whatever order you want, but I'd say these are the consensus top 5 players in the draft, and I think you'll see them go top 5. So, the Cleveland Cavaliers are picking 6 overall. I'd say guard-wise, they're pretty solid. They have Sexton, they have Garland. They have Jared Allen at the center. Don't really need that. They have Okoro at the 3, who struggled offensively, but is a fantastic defensive player, great young defender. So I would say their power forward is probably their biggest need. And I think the choice here is either Jalen Johnson or Scotty Barnes. I think Jalen Johnson's a little small, better scorer though, but Scotty Barnes is another great defender they could bring in next to Okoro and Jared Allen, and he's a little bit of a bigger body, I'd say. He's built a little better, so they can bring him in, and he can be their 4 of the future. With the Sacramento Kings, they're set at guard. I mean, I think it's pretty clear that the Kings so far, they're set at guard for the future with Fox and Halliburton. So I don't think Johnson probably gets taken here. Even though I really like Keon, I don't think he gets taken here. So I think we're at a forward here, and it's coming down to whether they want Wagner as shooter or whether they want Jalen Johnson just to score and a playmaker. And I think they'd end up taking Jalen Johnson, the opt-out player from Duke University. With the 8th pick, it is the Magic again. This is Chicago's pick. I believe if it's top 4, I think Chicago gets to keep it, which would be great for them. But as of right now, I mean, I think the Magic get this, and they're happy to have 2 picks in the top 10. I mean, who wouldn't be? But they just got a power forward in Kuminga. You know, maybe they look at this, they need a shooting guard, probably a small forward. So I think they'd be happy to get some more shooting. So you think either Wagner or Kispert. I think Kispert's probably the better shooter right now, but I'd say Wagner offers more long-term potential. And when you're a young team that's rebuilding and you're looking for the future, you need guys that can develop. And I think Wagner brings that presence. With the 9th overall pick, we have the Toronto Raptors. They traded Norman Powell, shooting guard that they lost there. I mean, they're going to lose Kyle Lowry in the offseason most likely. So I'd say probably, they need a shooting guard, right? Maybe you could argue they need center just because, maybe you think Chris Boucher isn't the answer. But I think taking Isaiah Jackson here would be a bit of a reach at 9. So I think they probably take the best player on the board, the most athletic player on the board, in Keon Johnson out of Tennessee University. All right, the New Orleans Pelicans at number 10. They need shooting desperately around Zion. Zion is a black hole in the middle, Fantastic player, but not a shooter. I mean, has the most points in the paint per game this season, I believe. I believe he's first in points in the paint per game, ahead of Giannis Antetokounmpo, which is crazy. But I think they need a shooter. And here I think they would go with Corey Kispert out of Gonzaga, arguably the best shooter in this draft. The Washington Wizards are on the clock at 11, and I'd say they definitely need a big guy. They have Russ and Beal, and with the way they're trending up at the end of the season, I think they might keep both of them. I don't think they'll trade them. I think they'll end up keeping both of them. So the guy that they really need to get is probably a center. They have Gafford, they have Bryant, but it looks like so far neither of those guys are really the answer. So I think they'd bring in a guy like Isaiah Jackson out of Kentucky, a fantastic defender, rim protector, has a pretty good field goal percentage around the rim, so I think he is the pick here at 11. All right, the Indiana Pacers. It says they need a center badly. I don't agree with that at all. I think they'll keep Miles Turner, but at the trade deadline, Malcolm Brogdon was in trade rumors, and Aaron Holiday hasn't quite lived up to the potential that they thought he had. So I think they'll bring in an electric scorer, playmaker, probably the biggest riser in the draft just based on the tournament and the way that he led his team to the title. And I think they'll take Davion Mitchell out of Baylor. The Warriors are picking at 13. I think they need a big man. I do. I mean, they have Wiseman, but in terms of backup big man, I don't say they have a lot. They have Looney, who I think they could let Looney go. So at this point, I believe you're down to Sengun or Garuba. I mean, Kai Jones is not a bad player either, but you already have an athletic big guy down there. Sengun is a good shooter, but I think Wiseman can already shoot, and they have a lot of great shooting. Garuba's probably more raw of a prospect, but I'd say he has more ability to throw people around in the post. He's big. He's a pretty big dude. He's built. He's not necessarily super tall for a big guy, but he's strong, and he'll throw people around, and I think he is the pick here for the Warriors at 13. All right, the 14th pick, the San Antonio Spurs. I would say they need a big guy because, they just lost Aldridge. They have Pirtle there. Maybe you could argue they need a forward. They have Keldon Johnson, but that's about it. It's tough because they have a lot of point guards already in terms of, DeJounte Murray, Lonnie Walker is arguably a point, Derek White. So they're not taking a guard most likely. I'll say they take the big man. They like international players. I'll say they take the big man Alperen Sengun out of, where's he from? Out of Turkey. So this is the lottery right here. Cade to the Rockets, Mobley to the Timberwolves, Jalen Green to the Pistons, the Magic get Kuminga. The Thunder get Suggs, Scotty Barnes to the Cavs, Jalen Johnson to the Kings, Wagner to the Magic, Keon Johnson to the Raptors, Kispert, great shooter, to the Pelicans, Jackson, Mitchell, Garuba, and Sengun round out the lottery. And with the 15th pick, we have the Charlotte Hornets, who probably need a big guy, but I'd say they're going to lose Malik Monk and Devontae Graham most likely in the offseason. So maybe they bring in a guy who can come in, who can score next to LaMelo. They probably don't bring in another point guard because they have LaMelo and Terry, but I think they could bring in a great shooter and scorer in Cameron Thomas out of LSU. I love Cam Thomas. I already made a video about Cam Thomas. I think Cam Thomas has lottery talent. I think he's being projected around the 20s, but I think Cam Thomas is a lottery level player just because of the scoring potential he showed at LSU. The Grizzlies at 16. I mean, you could argue they need a shooting guard because I think Dylan Brooks is probably a 3, and I mean they have who is it? They have Grayson Allen, my bad. They have Grayson Allen at the 2, who's probably not the long-term answer. So I think they go a guy with a lot of potential, but maybe he was a little raw right now, and Josh Giddey out of Australia. The Thunder. The Thunder need a big man. I think that's clear. We already gave them a point guard with their first pick. I think they need a big man now. And the best big man on the board right now is Kai Jones out of Texas. Extremely raw, but showed some flashes. I think it's a good pick for them and one that could help them for the future. With the 18th pick, Boston Celtics, they need a big man too. But are they really going to get one here? I don't think there's a lot of big man options, you know. There's Bassey, but it's probably a little early to take Bassey. I think Zaire Williams is a guy that intrigues me here. Has a lot of talent. It says he's a shooting guard, but I'd say he's really a wing player. So you could put him at the 3 or the 4. I think that really makes the most sense here. I think Zaire Williams, great shooter, good defender. I mean, it makes sense to me, so I think they would take Williams here at 18. All right. The Houston Rockets back on the clock at 19. You could argue they need a big man too, just got Cade, but John Wall is probably out of there soon. At this point, I think you take best player available again, and to me that's Trey Mann. Showed it in the tournament that he's that good. I think you can pair him next to Cade and it wouldn't be an issue, so I think Trey Mann is the pick here for the Rockets at 19. The Atlanta Hawks. It says they need a center. That's not true. Clint Capella is one of the best centers in the league. Don't let anyone tell you different. He just is. I think they need a backup point guard, maybe a guy who can play a little defense, a guy that, you know, fits kind of like a Spurs guard mentality is what I'm thinking here, of a guy that plays defense and facilitates the ball well. And to me, that's Book Knight out of UConn, is a great fit behind Trae Young in the backcourt. Pretty solid defender, athletic player, good playmaker. At the 2, you can play him at the 1 as well. I think it makes sense to get Book Knight here at 20. The New York Knicks with the pick at 21. I mean, they have Mitchell Robinson at the center. There's not a real center you can take right here. I think it would be a stretch. I mean, I think Quickly is probably a 2 long-term. He's probably not the guy who's going to be your primary ball handler. RJ Barrett can play the 3, so I think we're looking at a point. And for them, I think they take potential here in Sharife Cooper out of Auburn. Great freshman, averaged, I think, almost 20 points a game, around 8 assists. Fantastic player. Put up great numbers at Auburn in his freshman year, and I think they'd be glad to take him here. Can we talk about how deep this draft is? I think a lot of these guys are lottery picks in another draft. Like Sharife Cooper is a fantastic talent. So is Moody, Dosunmu, Butler. I mean, there's a lot of lottery level talent players left. This is one of the deepest drafts I've seen in a while. And there's basically 5 players that could be a number 1 pick in any other year. That top 5 is ridiculous right now. And I mean, in terms of depth overall, there's a lot of players that I think have the potential to be very good players long term. And I think it's one of the best drafts we'll see in a long time. I really like this draft and the talent that it has. The Knicks are on the clock again with Dallas's pick. Maybe you argue they take a big here. They need a center. So we'll go Charles Bassey out of Western Kentucky. Has put up stats for years there. Double-double machine at Western Kentucky. Strong, physical. Probably could have come out both of the last 2 years. But the Knicks will take him here at 22, and I think he'll be happy to see his dreams come true. All right, the Lakers. I think they probably need a point guard. It sounds like Dennis Schroeder might leave in the offseason. just because he's not extremely happy that he didn't get paid. I think he wanted to be paid more than they offered. And even if he doesn't leave, they don't have a great backup point right now. If you play LeBron at the 3, they don't have a great backup point guard. So I'd say they take experience, and they take Jared Butler, the point guard out of Baylor. Also a great tournament player, probably a little bit rising because of his tournament performance. The Houston Rockets with their 3rd pick, 24th. I think they need a big man, but there's not a lot of big man potential here. I mean, Greg Brown is probably the best one on the board, and they need a guy to put next to Christian Wood. But honestly, I'm really intrigued by the shooting of a Petrusev and Christian Wood front court. I think that's what I'm going to go. Petrusev left Gonzaga and went over to Eurobasket, I think, is where he played. And he's averaging like 30 points a game over there. It's absolutely ridiculous. He has upped his stock tremendously by going overseas instead of staying at Gonzaga. And I really respect it. And he's a great shooter to pair next to Wood. And that'd be a great front court for the future. The 76ers. They don't have a lot of needs. I mean, we can just go off talent here, I think, because I don't think there's really any excessive needs. They have Harris at the 4, Simmons at the 1, Embiid at the 2, and then they have Green and Curry still. They have Maxey and Milton for the future. So maybe I'll go with 3 just because I don't know if they have a great small forward for the future. So we will take Marcus Bagley, brother of Marvin Bagley, who hasn't worked out, but Marcus has looked good in college as a freshman, and he looked good for Arizona State, played well for them. Is just a little smaller, small forward instead of a power forward, and I think he has a lot of potential, so they'll take him here at 25. The Denver Nuggets at pick 26. I mean, they probably do need a power forward behind Aaron Gordon, but they're probably not going to get that here. They just traded away RJ Hampton, so I say they need a guard to replace him, and they're getting great value here with Moses Moody, who has fallen a little bit to 26. Fantastic player out of Arkansas, was once considered a top 10 pick, as was Springer. These are both 2 very talented players, but I think they'll bring in the scorer Moses Moody out of Arkansas. All right, with the 27th pick, the Brooklyn Nets. It says they need a big guy. I'd probably agree with that. They have Claxton, who's probably their center of the future, but I don't know if they necessarily have a power forward of the future. So we'll go Greg Brown out of Texas. Texas puts out good big men. Can we just say that? Mo Bamba, Jared Allen, I mean, Miles Turner too. They put out good big guys that are NBA lottery picks often. If you see a solid big freshman out of Texas, it's likely that he'll be pretty solid. 28th pick, the LA Clippers. Oof. One of these 4 guys isn't going to get drafted in the first round. It's tough. But I'd say they need a backup point guard because, Patrick Beverley is not great. Okay, let's just put it out there. Rondo will probably still be there another year, but Patrick Beverley is not great. And I think they'll take a guy with the most potential rather than the most experience because they have a couple guys there probably for another year anyway. They'll still be there. So I think they take most potential and they go Jaden Springer out of Tennessee. The Phoenix Suns probably also need a point guard, maybe to replace Chris Paul. And I think they could go experience right away, go a great scorer, a guy that is a huge Kobe fan, in Ayo Dosunmu out of Illinois. With the 30th pick in this mock draft, the Utah Jazz, I'm going to have them select Chris Duarte, athletic player out of Oregon, and that is the last pick of the first round. Let's go, boys. That's a good first round mock draft, I believe. I think most of these are really solid fits. There are a couple based off just talent alone. The Rockets had the most picks, getting Jalen Green, Cade Cunningham, Trey Mann, and Philippe Petrusev. And there are a couple teams with a couple picks, like the Thunder, getting Suggs and Kai Jones. But overall, I think a lot of teams help themselves for the future, and this is one of the best drafts you'll see. Like, this draft is very, very deep, and it's going to be very fun to watch to see how it turns out for teams and for players. I think there could be a lot of trades just because, teams recognize that the draft is, that good, and they know that they can get, probably maybe future stars late in the first round. This draft is that good, and I think teams recognize that. So I think there might be a lot of trades to get up and get their guy. But that's all I have to say about this. If you have anything you wanted to talk about, let me know down below, and I'll get to that. If you enjoyed the video, hit that like button. It helped me out a lot. And if you're still watching at this point, I appreciate you a lot. So thank you. And I hope you boys have a good one. That's all I have for today. Peace out.